Alright, so let's start off with a little disclaimer. This is my first Monster Hunter game ever. I've always wanted to play Monster Hunter for the longest time, but I didn't want to buy a 3DS or a Wii U and now a Switch just to play Monster Hunter. Mainly because I think handheld gaming is going to be a pain for me, but also because I already have a console I barely use. Until Monster Hunter World and God of War came out. The best way I can describe Monster Hunter to people who've never heard of it is, you hunt monsters, you carve out materials from them, use said materials to make armor and weapons, and continue doing it until you get bored or the next big Monster Hunter game comes out. It is the ultimate grind game, but it's a very fun grind game. Let's start off with the story first. To be honest, there's barely any, at least from what I can tell, but what I got from it was that you are an A-list hunter with the 5th Fleet that travels to the New World in order to understand a phenomenon called the Elder Crossing, which used to happen every 100 or so years to every decade. The main objective is to research, hell, even the side objectives are to research the monsters that live in the New World. The game has a very strong opening with a story by introducing the Elder Dragon you're hunting, which is basically a walking volcano. It's literally that big and also has a volcano on its back. And because this is my first introduction to Monster Hunter and also seeing an Elder Dragon for the first time ever, I had no idea what an Elder Dragon was, so I thought all Elder Dragons were sort of like these monstrous, ginormous creatures. But it turns out they're not. It's just this one Elder Dragon is. But then about halfway through, the story sort of falls flat on its arse, which is about when you reach the early stages of high rank content, only to then pick up again with a very intriguing conclusion to the Elder Crossing. Now that the story's out of the way, let's talk about the real meat of the game. It's pretty damn good. Actually no. It's awesome. It plays like a third-person action RPG. It has character customization, a wide range of skills that you get from gear, crafting, investigations, expeditions, which are its version of open world, even though it's in one of the 5 zones you hunt monsters in, which is a little disappointing, but it made up for all that with the combat, which is where the awesome comes in. Monster Hunter gives the player a wide range of weapons to play with, anything from the iconic greatsword to a bow and to a gun lance. A fucking gun lance. Sorry Final Fantasy, but your gun swords are nothing compared to the gun lance. I don't even use the gun lance, but the very notion of a gun lance is metal as fuck. The best way to describe Monster Hunter's combat is Souls-like, which I know would piss off a lot of hardcore Souls players, but here's a short history lesson. The original Monster Hunter came out in 2004 for the PS2, so yeah, the combat system hasn't changed much since the original. It's been refined over the years, but its core very much remains intact. Each monster has its own specific moves and tells of which they'll use, Diablos being the most obvious, unless it's your first encounter, which was the case for me, but over time I got the hang of it, then decided to switch from dual blades to the lance. Yes, I decided to use the easiest weapon against Diablos because I could not stand using something I love to use on something that will not take it. Sounds very weird. Anyway, each weapon is unique. Some share similarities, gun lance and lance for one, only the lance is more defensive than the gun lance, but the gun lance can dish out more damage. I played the majority of the game with dual blades because I liked the way I could get into combat insanely quick, only to have a monster's roar stop me from doing anything until my character regained his hearing, or got the earplug skill up. The skill system in Monster Hunter wasn't obvious to me. Your character doesn't grow in power in the traditional sense, instead you, the player, get better and obtain better gear, and armor gives you skills. If you have a helmet that gives health boost level 1, then your health goes up by the amount shown in the details of that skill. But if you're wearing that helmet and another piece of armor that gives health boost, it will level up by however much that skill says. So you can get a full rank of health boost by 2 or even 1 piece of armor. Armor also gives you resistances to certain elements as well as base defense because every monster has elemental attacks or abnormal status effects such as poison. You can only get resistances to abnormal effects from armor skills, so if you're hunting a monster, it's best to make their set if you're planning on farming them to deal with their effects or status effects. Otherwise, you can make gear that is purely to make you dish out more damage. Or look cool. Some of the armor sets look extremely cool. One of the biggest issues I've had with Monster Hunter World is, on the PS4, every now and then, the game sort of has these frame spikes, where the frame rate goes down and then it just jumps back up to 60, and you notice it. It's very easy to notice, like, too easy to notice. It's not seamless or anything, it's just right there. A monster attacks, an elemental attack appears, and then your frame rate goes down, and then once the elemental particle effects are gone, boom, back up to 60. But the game doesn't actually stay at 60 all the time. Sometimes it stays around between 60 and 30. It's stable at that, but it's not 100% always at 60 or 100% always at 30. It sort of fluctuates. Another issue is Capcom did a very poor job at explaining that it's actually Hunter rank 49 where true endgame begins, but they also failed to mention that once you reach Hunter rank 100, that's when you've unlocked absolutely everything for endgame. But there's something you should know about early on in the game. The tutorials for the weapons sucks. It's like next to no information about it. It just gives you some bottom prompts and tells you to try them out. But it makes you try them out against a wooden pillar that doesn't actually move or do anything to you. Sure, there's an explosive barrel in the middle of the room which allows you to find out how to deal with damage, or use something like the charge blade with its guard ability, or the sword and shield with its guard ability, or the lance with its guard ability, or the gun lance with its guard ability. It would be nice if you were able to practice against monsters in the training room to get an understanding of how to deal with their abilities, because the best way to understand monsters is by going into investigations, which is a good way if you want to get loads of rewards, but the thing is, it's not a good way if you want to practice against the monster, because they give you a feint limit and also a time limit to do the mission, in which case, if you fail to do it in either one of those two sections, you're out. But in the training room, you can do it for as long as you want. It's just nice if you were able to practice against a monster in the training room, not some pillar that doesn't fight back, or is too far away from the mushrooms that you can run up onto and jump off to do an aerial attack. I kind of feel that they've screwed that part up. My final gripe with the game is there isn't a transmog system. There's a layered armor system, but let's face it, it can't compete with some of the sets such as Rathalos or Xeno'jiiva or even Barn, which makes you look like a space marine from StarCraft. Overall, I really enjoyed playing Monster Hunter World. I didn't get to experience everything the game had to offer due to the fact I don't have PS Plus, but seeing as the game is said to be coming to PC, I'll just buy a copy there and play online. The tutorial was a big issue for me at the beginning due to its lack of information, but there's a ton of guides for weapons and even monsters that are on YouTube, so I highly recommend this to anyone who's looking for a game that they can hunt massive monsters that pose a challenge at times, and also with your friends. You can have up to 3 other players with you,